I never planned for my life to look like this. Not that I regret any of it, far from it. But there are days I catch my reflection in the hallway mirror, hair up in a lazy knot, a forgotten smudge of flour on my cheek from baking, and I think, this wasn't the life I imagined, but it's the one I chose. It's the life I built with Ethan. I was 36 when I finally gave up on fertility treatments. I'd been through all of it. Hormones, ultrasounds, the quiet hope of each new cycle followed by the crashing disappointment. The final blow came after a second failed IVF round. The doctor, kind but clinical, placed a hand on my knee and said, "You've tried everything. Sometimes biology has its own plans." Biology, nature, fate. I hated all of it. I came home that evening, sat alone in the kitchen with a glass of wine, and stared at the pile of ultrasound photos, empty sacs, failed starts. And I cried until the light outside faded into night. But somewhere in that darkness, something shifted. I realized that maybe being a mother didn't mean sharing DNA. Maybe love didn't require blood. That's how, a year later, Ethan came into my life. He was just shy of his third birthday, tiny and wide-eyed, with a mop of dark curls and a silence that settled over him like a blanket. He didn't cry the day I brought him home. He didn't speak, either. He simply watched me, his gaze cautious, as though waiting to see if I'd vanish like so many others had. It took months before he would fall asleep without waking from nightmares, months before he called me anything other than her. But I stayed, through tantrums and silence. Through the first time he laughed, really laughed, when we made a mess in the kitchen baking muffins. Through school mornings and scraped knees, storybooks and stargazing. Through heartbreak and healing. I was mom by the time he turned 5. And to me, he was my son in every way that mattered. The years passed faster than I ever expected. One moment he was clinging to my hand at the park, the next he was taller than me, his voice deeper, his room plastered with posters of bands I didn't know. Still, we stayed close. He confided in me more than most boys his age would. Maybe too much sometimes. But I never pushed him away. I suppose that's why I noticed when things began to shift. It was subtle at first. A lingering look over breakfast that I couldn't explain. A hug that lasted a second longer than usual. The way he began to hover in the kitchen while I cooked, watching me like I was something unfamiliar. At first, I chalked it up to his age, hormones, confusion, the awkwardness of late adolescence. I told myself it was nothing. Until the evening, everything changed. It was a Friday, early spring. The cherry trees in the front yard had just started to bloom, shedding petals across the driveway like soft confetti. I had finished teaching a virtual dance class, nothing fancy, just something I did a few nights a week for fun and to stay active. Ethan was supposed to be out with friends, but plans had changed. He came home early. I had just stepped out of the shower, a robe wrapped around me, towel still in my damp hair, when I walked into the kitchen and saw him sitting at the table. He looked up as if he'd been waiting for me. "Didn't know you were back," I said, reaching for a glass of water. He didn't answer right away. Just watched me, his eyes unreadable. Then he stood and walked to the counter beside me. "You looked happy dancing," he said softly. I froze for a second, glass halfway to my lips. "You watched the live stream?" He nodded. "Yeah, you're good." "Thank you." I smiled, trying to ease the odd tension curling between us. His eyes dropped to the floor, then back to mine. "You always seem different when you dance. Freer." I didn't know how to respond to that. "It helps me let go of things." "Yeah," he said, stepping closer. "I like that side of you." My heart thudded once, just once, too loudly in my chest. I laughed, brushing it off. "Well, it's just me," I said, backing away to the fridge. Sweaty and sore. Ethan didn't press further. He smiled, murmured good night, and retreated to his room. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in that moment. A thread pulled too tight. A boundary too close. The next day, he was quiet, polite, helpful. And yet, I caught his eyes lingering again when I leaned over the sink to wash dishes, when I bent to pick up the laundry. The warmth of his presence wasn't new, but the way he watched me was. I tried to dismiss it. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But when night fell again and I found myself lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I could still feel the weight of his gaze. Not as a child, but as something else. Something I didn't have the words for.
Yet.
I told myself to stop thinking about it. That it was nothing. A few strange moments, nothing more. But it didn't stop. In the days that followed, I tried to restore normalcy. I went about my routines, kept my conversations light, focused on work, errands, my small world that used to feel so safe. But Ethan's presence began to cast a longer shadow. He wasn't doing anything overt. No lines crossed. No words said that couldn't be explained away. And yet, I felt it all the same, an invisible tide pulling at the edges of the world we'd built. The most disorienting part was that I didn't know how to name what I was feeling. Was it fear? Guilt? Or just confusion? The ambiguity haunted me. One afternoon, I was folding laundry on the couch when he walked in, still sweaty from a run. He peeled off his hoodie, revealing the lean, muscular build he'd grown into. I averted my gaze too quickly, then felt foolish for doing so. He was my son. My Ethan. But there was a strange awareness now, a current that moved beneath every shared space. He threw himself onto the couch beside me, his arm brushing mine. Need help? No, I've got it, I said quickly. He didn't move away. You always say that. I forced a smile. Because it's always true. He looked at me then, really looked. There was something different in his expression, a softness edged with something deeper. Something I didn't want to see. Or maybe I did. And that terrified me more than anything. I got up, clutching a stack of towels like armor. Dinner's in an hour. I'll help, he offered. I'm fine. His eyes narrowed just a little. You've been avoiding me. The words made me stop cold. I turned to him slowly. What? I'm not stupid, Mom. You've been off. Different. He stood too, and now we were too close. Did I do something? My throat tightened.
No.
It's nothing. Just work. Stress. Is that all? His tone was careful, measured. Yes, I said, perhaps too quickly. Of course it is. We stood in that silence for a moment, one I didn't know how to break. Then he nodded, stepped back, and left the room. The space he'd vacated felt warmer than it should have. I placed the towels down, my hands trembling just slightly. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, listening to the creaks of the old house, to the hum of the refrigerator down the hall, to the occasional rustle of wind against the windows. At some point, I heard his door creak open, soft footsteps padding toward the kitchen. A glass clinked against the counter. Water ran. I held my breath. Then silence. I waited. He didn't return to his room. The hallway light flickered on, casting a faint glow beneath my door. Still, I stayed frozen, not daring to move. I wasn't sure why I felt so exposed. But I did. Like the walls between us had thinned overnight. Eventually, the light turned off. His door closed. But sleep never came. Over the following week, things grew even stranger. He was around more, choosing to stay home rather than go out, sitting too close on the couch, letting his fingers brush against mine when passing the salt. Each time it was subtle, gentle, but deliberate. And I felt like a traitor to myself for noticing. One evening, he came home with flowers. Just a simple bouquet of lilies and baby's breath. For you, he said, handing them over with a shrug. Thought the kitchen needed color. My breath caught in my throat. Ethan, you don't have to bring me flowers. I know. His gaze didn't leave mine. I wanted to. It should have felt innocent, but it didn't. There was something loaded in the way he watched me, like he was waiting for a response I couldn't give. So I said nothing. I smiled, thanked him, and placed the bouquet in a vase beside the window. That night, as I wiped down the counters, I caught my reflection in the glass, face soft in the amber kitchen light, a line between my brows that hadn't been there a year ago. I looked not like a mother, not like someone with clear boundaries. I looked uncertain. That's when I knew something had to change.
I had to talk to him.
But even as I rehearsed the words in my mind, "You're my son, Ethan. This, whatever you're feeling, it has to stop." I wasn't sure which part I'd be saying more for him and which part for myself. Because, deep down, I was starting to question everything. Even myself. It started with an invitation. "You never go out," Ethan said, leaning in the kitchen doorway with that familiar crooked smile. "Come with me tonight.
It's just a small party."
Nothing crazy. I looked up from the salad I was chopping, arching a brow. "A party? With your friends?" He shrugged, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, they know you. I've mentioned you. I thought it'd be fun. I'm nearly twice their age." "You're not ancient," he said, grinning. "And you're a better dancer than any of them. Come on, Mom. Just one night." There was something in his voice, something warm and convincing, that made it hard to say no. Maybe I wanted a distraction. Or maybe I just wanted to see how far this strange new tension between us would stretch before it snapped. I said yes. That night, I put on a simple dress, black, modest, nothing too flashy, and ran a comb through my hair. I told myself it was just a party. Just music. Just company. Nothing more. But when Ethan saw me step out of my bedroom, his expression shifted. He didn't say anything at first. Just looked. And then, very softly, he said, "You look beautiful." I should have thanked him and let it pass. But the words caught in my throat. I just smiled and grabbed my purse. The venue was a private loft downtown. Soft lighting, exposed brick, music pulsing through the floorboards. His friends greeted me with polite smiles, some of them surprised, others overly charming. A few girls raised their brows when Ethan took my hand to guide me through the crowd. He stayed close all evening. We danced. At first, it was playful. A few bachata steps, some spins and twirls, just enough to earn a few cheers from the group. But then the rhythm slowed. The room around us blurred as the lights dimmed and a deeper beat took over. We moved together, like instinct. My hand in his palm at my waist. Breath close. Movements fluid. Too fluid. For a heartbeat, it didn't feel like mother and son. It felt like something else. I stepped back, laughing nervously. "That's enough. I need a drink." He followed me to the bar, ordered 2 cocktails, something fruity, colorful, with a name I didn't recognize. We clinked glasses. "To letting go," he said. I hesitated, then echoed. "To letting go." The first sip was sweet, the second smoother. By the third, the warmth had crept up my spine and settled behind my eyes. We talked.
Laughed.
I remember leaning against him as the music got louder, his arm wrapping protectively around my back. My cheeks were flushed, not just from the alcohol, but from the way he looked at me when I tilted my head to tease him. I should have stopped there, but I didn't. Another cocktail found its way into my hand. Then another. The world tilted gently around me, like a dance I couldn't quite follow anymore. I blinked, and the lights felt too bright, the sounds too far away. "Hey," Ethan said, his voice low, concerned. "You okay?" I nodded, but the room was already spinning. "I think I don't know, some air." "I've got you," he said. I don't remember how he left the dance floor. I just remember the steady press of his hand against my back, the feel of his breath near my ear as he guided me through the crowd. I vaguely registered stairs, the creak of a door, the cool hush of a darker room away from the music. He helped me sit down on the edge of a couch. "Just lie back," he murmured. "You're all right." I tried to speak, but my tongue felt thick. My thoughts were syrupy, slow. I looked at him. His face was the last clear thing I remember. The way his hand brushed a strand of hair from my face. The concern in his voice. Or was it something else? I don't know. Because after that, there's nothing. A dark blur. A breath. A silence. Then nothing. Morning light filtered in through the half-closed curtains, soft and warm, but I didn't feel warm. I felt off. My head throbbed with the dull ache of too much drink, and my limbs were heavy, as though I'd run a marathon in my sleep. I shifted beneath the covers, still dressed in yesterday's clothes, my mouth dry and cottony. Then I froze. There was a faint ache in my lower abdomen and a sharper, deeper soreness between my legs. Nothing unbearable, just enough to feel unfamiliar. Enough to make me go still. I sat up slowly, trying to push back the fog clinging to my thoughts. The room was silent. The house still. The events of last night sat just beyond the reach of memory, like objects hidden beneath dark water. I could recall dancing. Ethan's hand on mine. The taste of sweet cocktails. Then a flash of music. A couch. A darker room. Then nothing. The absence was worse than a nightmare. It was an emptiness I couldn't explain away. I rubbed my temples, trying to summon something, anything, but the harder I tried, the more it slipped through my grasp. And that ache wouldn't go away. I stumbled out of bed and made my way to the bathroom. The reflection that greeted me was a stranger, tired eyes, hair tangled, skin paler than usual. My dress had a wrinkle across the waist as if I'd slept in an uncomfortable position, and the strap of my bra peeked out, twisted and pulled. It was enough to send a shiver down my spine. I pulled it off, stepped into the shower, and let the water run hot. I stood there for what felt like forever, trying to wash away not just the fog in my body, but the sinking dread blooming in my chest. Something had happened, and I didn't know what. When I finally dressed and made my way to the kitchen, I found Ethan already there. He was at the stove, flipping pancakes like it was any normal morning. When he turned and saw me, he smiled. "You're up," he said. "Thought you'd sleep in." His voice was light, easy, but something in his eyes shifted, just a flicker, quickly masked. "I woke up in my dress," I said quietly.
He paused.
"Yeah, you were pretty out of it. I didn't want to wake you." "How did I get home?" "I drove you," he replied a little too quickly. "You started feeling dizzy, so I brought you back." I stepped closer, watching his face. "Ethan, what happened last night?" He kept his gaze on the frying pan. "Not much. We danced, drank a bit. You didn't feel good, so I brought you upstairs at the party to rest. Then we came home." "Upstairs," I echoed. "Yeah, just a spare room. You laid down for a bit, then I drove us home once the party started winding down." I said nothing for a moment. Just listened to the sizzle of pancake batter, the creak of the floor beneath my feet. I don't remember anything after the second drink. He glanced at me then. "That's not surprising. You're not used to cocktails." There was no accusation in his tone. Nothing sharp. But there was something missing, something I couldn't name. I searched his face for guilt, for discomfort, for anything that might explain this gnawing uncertainty inside me. "I feel sore," I said carefully, watching him. He blinked. "From dancing?" "Maybe." But we both knew that wasn't what I meant. The silence stretched between us, thick and uneasy. He flipped the pancake with practiced ease, but his hand trembled just slightly. Barely enough to see. "You should eat something," he said, still not meeting my eyes. "You'll feel better after." I sat down at the table, my body heavy with questions I didn't know how to ask. There was no proof. No memory. Nothing but a feeling in my bones and the flicker in his eyes. And still he smiled, as if nothing had changed. But everything had.